Alright, welcome to part 2 of mechanical clock repair. In this part we'll take this thing apart and see what's going on inside. First we'll start with getting your clock knob off. Now this being a 73 Grand Am has a slightly different clock knob where you pull it out and it just unscrews just like that. More commonly Pontiac clocks will have a chrome knob with a set screw in the center. And it's just a little slotted set screw, so if you've got a jeweler's screwdriver, you just unscrew that and pull it out, but it pops right off and leaves you with that. And this is very important to do first because we need that off to be able to get the gauge out. Okay, the clock in the G body bezel is held in place with 3/4 inch screws. So use our 1/4 inch nut driver and pull these out. These are a little stiff. This car sat outside under a tree for about 12 years, so it was actually a parts car. And again, regardless of which Pontiac model you have, once we get past the bezel, essentially the clock mechanism itself is the same. Now the clock face itself tends to be slightly larger than the bezel, so you can't really pull it straight out. So you may find you'll have to kind of pivot it, especially in the Firebird and Le Mans bezels, but there are usually little flat areas or notches on the clock face that allow it to kind of be pivoted and pulled out of the bezel itself. So we'll set the bezel aside and focus on the clock itself. Now, the clocks are serviced from the front, so we have to go in through the face, and what I'll do is I'll pull these tabs, bend these tabs back, and we'll pull the face off. But before we do that, we have to get the clock hands off, and I've got big old fat fingers, but I can do it on this one because it's a bigger clock. If you're working on the Firebird clock, a little set of forceps or a small pair of needle nose pliers can help you. But what you want to try and do is get up under the hands like this. Do not pull on them like this, because if you bend this they can break very easily. Like I said, I can tend to do this just with my fingertips, and it's just a matter of just getting your fingertips under it and just pulling straight up fairly firmly. These are really stuck on there sometimes, but that's all there is to getting that off. Likewise with the minute hand, I'm just going to use my fingernails to get under there and pop the minute hand off, and the hour hand. And again, being very careful not to touch the face of the clock with my fingers so I don't get greasy fingerprints right there. Okay, now on this clock, and again on many of the other ones, you've got these tabs that are bent over. This is where your little screwdriver may actually come in handy if you can't get your needle nose under them. Okay, I'm going to actually cheat just off camera here. I do have a jeweler's screwdriver set, so which you'll have out anyway if you had to remove your chrome clock knob. So there's 1, 2, 3. Okay. Be very, very careful bending these, because these this is very, very fine, very thin metal, and it does not have much of a memory, and you're going to have to bend these back. So in doing this operation, you're kind of inherently weakening these tabs a little bit. But again, hopefully once you get this thing good and clean and lubed, you won't have to worry about doing this too many more times. Okay, we've got these loose, and once they're completely free of the housing, come on, turkey, should just slide right off, and there we have it. So we set that aside. Okay. Alright, now again, regardless of what model you have, you're probably going to be seeing something like this egg-shaped housing. You've got 3 tabs. You've got a tab 1, 2, and 3. And this is where your flat blade screwdriver will come in handy, because you've got a little slot right next to it, and you just stick the blade in there and just give it a little twist, and that will bend right out for you. And again, just because metal has a memory and you don't want to create more work for yourself later, bend as gently as you can and as straight as you can, because you are going to rely on these to hold this turkey back together once you get it reassembled. Sorry, I'm trying to watch what I'm doing and stay on camera. Okay, so with that, I'll pop this thing loose now. Oh, I didn't disconnect the power lead. Okay, on the G body, the power lead goes to this stud, and it just pulls right off. It's just a very similar term, a very a slip terminal there. So you have to finagle the wire. We don't need to cut the wire. It gives us enough slack to get this out of the housing to be able to service the unit. Okay, so pretty much any 60s or 70s Pontiac, and I assume GM clock that you encounter, you're going to find this kind of stuff inside. What actually winds the clock, you've got an electromagnet right here, and it's energized by this set of contacts right here. So when you have 12 volts applied to the clock, these contacts come together, the electromagnet energizes, and it kicks this unit down. And this is a spring-loaded unit right here that acts against the mechanical portion of the clock. What can happen is if the mechanical portion is bound up or dries out or whatever and won't run, or this gets damaged and won't fire apart, these contacts can stay together and burn and melt. And I have seen these things absolutely fried, where there's either a white smoky haze or a black haze around here from where they've burned. I've seen them melted. They're just like the contact points inside your points distributor. And if you get your clock apart and you encounter that, you're going to need to solder a new contact on here. And again, there's an excellent video elsewhere on YouTube that shows you how to do that using the tip of a phono plug, and I'll put a link to that because I think that's wonderful information if that's your problem. Likewise, you have very small copper wiring that obviously connects the electromagnetic to the points. Sometimes that can melt or get broken, and that'll need to be fixed if you want your clock to run. I generally have never done that because I find these commonly enough at swap meets and junkyards that I've just gone and gotten another one and cleaned it and lubed it and stuck it in the car and have had pretty good success there. Anyway, once these contacts are open and the spring has tension on it, it acts on the clock, and you can just see it. I don't know how good my lighting is in here, but there's your little pendulum right there, and you see it just stopped. In most of my cars, my experience has been this pendulum just won't stay running because the shaft just does not have enough lubrication on it to keep it running. So as you can see, this one will run just for a few seconds and then stop. So this is what we're going to address in this clock right here, and then we'll put 12 volts to it and see if it works.